Oh boy. I feel like we bonded over our love for Bachelor. That's what it like initially connected us to start this YouTube channel. We dove into the wild world of Bachelor fan fiction, which isn't a very big niche, but
it's there.
It exists. So,
and we were fascinated and wanted to learn more.
We're rolling it all the way back to season 13. Nope. Yep.
Of Rachel Lindsay's season of The Bachelorette, which was a big deal for a few reasons. First of all, she was the very first African-American Bachelorette. And secondly, she has very much of a take no shit personality, and so that's the way the season rolled out. She was knocking them down left and right, here to find a man, and not really here to play games, which I think we both really enjoyed and admired. I think she's one of my favorite Bachelorettes.
Yeah, she was definitely one of mine, because she was really real, I felt like, and like she made a career for herself, like was doing her own thing, and like I guess she had a long 5-year relationship that came to an end. Finding love in the real world wasn't working out, and so she went on initially The Bachelor and then became The Bachelorette.
So there's this service that also has an app called Wattpad or Wattpad. It's basically where amateur writers or professional writers can upload their work. Other people can read it and rate it, comment on it, that kind of thing. So a lot of niche fan fiction ends up over here on Wattpad. There's a lot of YouTubers that have done videos on Wattpad fairly recently because it's a gold mine of content, to be quite honest. So when we found this fan fiction on Wattpad, we knew there was nothing else to be done here but a dramatic reading of Rachel and Bryan's fan fiction.
It is entitled When the Cameras Stop Rolling, and supposed to take place right after the proposal that was aired on TV. All the parts that we didn't see are fictionalized by Fancy J20. And it's chef kiss. It's pretty quality stuff, y'all.
But if you are really invested in said shows, you know that right now is the infamous Bachelor lull, where paradise ends and we wait for the Bachelor season to premiere in January or February. So if you're out there looking for some Bachelor content, we just went into the depths of Wattpad and drug this up for you. And we're all going to explore this together. Before we start, just a disclaimer. This is just Fancy J20's depiction of Rachel Lindsay and Bryan Abasolo. I want to once again say that we both really enjoy her. One of my favorite Bachelorettes.
And I like him too. He's adorable.
He seems cool. He's yoked. Like, straight up.
Yeah.
Yoked.
And, like, they just got married recently. They're adorable.
So her season premiered in 2017. Bryan was her pick, for her man, and they got obviously stayed engaged, and then they actually just got married this past August. So the relationship worked. Welcome to Rachel and Bryan fan fiction, a reading by Sara and Sara Ann.
When the cameras stop rolling.
So this is kind of broken. It's not a script. It's broken down into paragraphs, and it is from the perspective of Rachel and Bryan immediately after the proposal.
Starts off from Rachel's perspective.
Oh, wait. Are you going to be Rachel or Bryan?
I'm going to be Bryan.
You be Bryan. And I'm very not articulate enough to portray Rachel, but here we shall trudge on.
The day's winds were heavy and strong, but she was on cloud 9. She couldn't believe that after 3 months of prepping, fretting, falling, and choosing, she was finally laying in his arms. It had been Bryan all along, and she felt lightheaded as the black production SUV rode down the bumpy hill and away from the Spanish castle, where she and Bryan had just gotten engaged. She looked up at Bryan, giving him a dizzy grin, as Halo played on the radio. Halo was not a song that was popular in 2017, like, was it?
No.
On the popular station, but whatever. When he looked down and silently mouthed, Her heart melted.
So they're heading back to the hotel after the proposal. Bryan, all he could think about was he and Rachel as they walked hand in hand down the hall towards the hotel suite. He had been patient, devoted, and confident the entire time, and he finally heard her say yes to his proposal. Rachel even said she was in love with him before they made love in the fantasy suite, but he could tell there was a part of her that was off. "This is it!" Rachel exclaims as she reached the door, snapping Bryan out of his thoughts.
"Should I carry you over the threshold, mi reina?"
He said, smiling down at her as he scooped her into his arm.
Arm
Singular. He's so yoked he doesn't need to use two arms for balance. Nothing made him happier than seeing her throw her head back, giggling. He wanted to spend the rest of his life making her happy.
"Damn, this is nicer than the fantasy suite," he said, placing Rachel down gently on a massive chaise lounge. "Baby, I'm thinking we can do some damage in here."
Oh, I'm down for the damage a little later, but right now I'm starving. You get changed out of your suite. You get changed out of your suit, spelled sweet, and I'll order some room service.
Denied. So they order some food, both feel tired, and they kind of start talking about their feelings. So he asks, "So how do you feel?" He said, making sure to read her face when she answered.
I feel great. I feel engaged, in love, a little tired. There was a pause. How do you feel?
"I feel blessed, Rach. Thankful to have you. Thankful to be with you," he sighed. These past few days have been an emotional roller coaster. For a second there, I thought
Though I might lose you.
But then I got to the castle today and they said I was the only one there. When he said that, her expression immediately changed.
To what?
Like,
oh.
She quickly recovered and gave him a smile. But it was too late. He'd seen it. There was something she wasn't telling him, and he was determined to find out what it was.
T. So that's the first part.
Guess we'll find out.
Onward we go.
Chapter 2 says, they were laying quietly in bed holding one another. Rachel had her head on his shoulder and a hand on his bare chest. He was lazily playing with one of her loose curls.
Bryan?
Yeah, babe?
You know how I can tell I really love you?
How, baby?
I can't say that. Bryan? Bryan?
Yeah, babe.
You know how you can tell I really love you?
How, baby?
When you play with my weave. When you play with my weave, I let you. Why?
I hope this really happened. We need to have Rachel I want her to see this so she can tell us what's real.
But I also don't want her to see this at all. They both burst out laughing. Bryan pulled her in close to kiss her forehead. This is the perfect time. Both our guards are down. She's in a great mood, Bryan thought before he started speaking again.
Rach, you know we both like to keep it 100. And if this thing is going to work, we have to promise each other that no matter what, we will always be honest about our feelings and tell each other what's going on. I want to be there for you. I want to be your best friend. You know, what we have can be so amazing if we promise to stay open.
For a moment, there was nothing but silence. When it came to expressing feelings, Bryan definitely had less trouble than Rachel. She experienced a lot of pain and heartache in the past, and a lifetime of learning to keep your guard up just doesn't go away in 3 months. He understood that he needed to be patient, but he also needed her to try. Man, Bryan's a little chastising. Like, sit down.
Try. Why are you trying?
Finally, he heard her say, I know, I want that too. He looked into her big brown eyes and kissed her full lips before he continued.
Good. So whenever you're ready, I want you to tell me what's been on your mind, how you've really been feeling this past week. Keep it 1,000% real. I can handle it. More silence.
This week was hard, especially the night before the engagement. I mean...
You good?
I mean, we talked about how after 5 years with my ex trying to convince him I was worthy of a commitment and being told otherwise, after opening up to Nick on national television and telling him, and him not seeing me as worthy of his proposal, I thought it overcame those feelings. I thought I moved past that. But hearing him tell me I needed to just wait for him... Like, wow. Not that I wanted him, but still, I'm the Bachelorette, and I'm still not worthy of commitment. It just took me back.
So then she goes on to kind of like rant for a little bit about like her past relationships and like not feeling worthy. They cry. Bryan held out his hand to Rachel. She sniffled as she took his hand. He held her tighter than he'd ever held any woman. He wanted her to know that he would never let her go. Baby, he whispered in her ear, you're one of the strongest people I know. You're beautiful, intelligent, funny, and you have such a big heart. I see you, Rachel. I see you. Part of him felt so much love for Rachel. He felt blessed that she opened up that much and allowed herself to be vulnerable. At the same time, he also felt that an insecure prick would waste such an amazing woman's time and hurt her along the way just for 15 minutes of fame.
Bryan was determined to be everything Rachel needed and deserved. Till death do they part. So I guess some time has passed, and we're now at the point between the ending of filming and before the season premieres, or before we're caught up to the point that the proposal has showed on TV. They have these secret dates that they let the final couple go on, and they'll provide like a safe haven, like they're being shot at or something.
Witness protection program.
They hit them up with like an Airbnb and bring them food and let them spend time together.
So anyway, like the secret doesn't get out who she picked or whatever.
Before the show airs.
Yeah.
So I think that's kind of where we're at now. She was exactly 2.7 minutes away from running into his arms. 2.7. She hadn't seen Bryan in almost 2 weeks, and their daily FaceTimes were no longer enough. She'd been waiting for this weekend since she left her last Happy Couples weekend, and when she received a text from Bryan that read 1.3 minutes, she squealed and giggled in the back of the van.
Their portrayal of Rachel just like is not really how I imagine her.
No, you can tell this was written by somebody else, and not that I know her or Bryan personally, but when I read this dialogue, I'm like, this just, and you picture her saying it, it sounds ridiculous.
Yeah, it's just... Okay.
It was almost midnight and the South Carolina night was dark. The network always made sure they traveled late and on weekend nights. This way it was less likely to have their picture taken or entertainment outlets would catch on to their secret rendezvous. Bryan, wearing a V-neck white t-shirt that somehow clung to every ab in his body, was flashing his gorgeous smile. His black basketball shorts hung loose on his hips, and he was now standing barefoot in the doorway.
Her car door was opened by a network staffer named Bill. I need your phone, Bill said in a serious tone. Rachel poked her bottom lip out and handed her phone over. The fridge is fully stocked, and as usual, just give us a ring on the landline and we'll bring you any takeout from the restaurant within 30 minutes. He flashed a quick grin. Enjoy.
2 things. First of all, once again, this just seems so out of character for Rachel. Like, Rachel poked her bottom lip out. Staffer made me give up my phone. That does not seem like her at all. Secondly, I think everyone needs a network staffer named Bill in their life because he said he would bring them anything within 30 miles for takeout. And that's better than Postmates, so. Bryan was bringing the last of her bags in when she stepped into the kitchen. He closed the door and she leapt into his arms for a long kiss. She closed her eyes and enjoyed the minty hint of mouthwash while running her fingers through his damp hair. You must have just gotten out of the shower, she sighed, as when the kiss ended.
I did, Bryan said. And I cooked too, he added before giving her another quick peck on the lips.
Yay, I'm hungry!
She was a picky eater, but she was always up for food or snacks. I'm hungry or I'm starving had started to become something of a catchphrase for her.
Relatable.
I'm not like most girls.
Right?
I snack.
Just girly things. I eat, just not whatever you're having. It smells amazing in here. What did you cook?
Bryan, now standing behind her, wrapped his hands around her waist. I made pork chops.
I don't know why that deserved such a build-up there. Oh my God, did you really? Baby, those are my favorite, Rachel exclaimed. Wait, I thought you didn't know how to make those. Are you keeping secrets? She had a sly grin on her face.
Taking her hand and leading her to the set kitchen table, he explained, so check it out. What I did was, for the past 2 weeks, I invited different friends and family over for dinner, like basically every night. And guess what I served them? Pork chops! He made pork chops every day for 2 weeks. That's kind of gross.
Cooking meat and learning how to season it, I don't feel like that should take 2 weeks of applied work.
Like, he's a grown-ass man. Like, he should know how to, like, season a piece of pork.
Every night he pulls them, off the pan and takes a bite and he's like, these aren't for Rachel.
Not good enough. These should be perfect for you, babe, he said confidently. Rachel missed him so much. How could she not when he went out of his way to make her this happy? Her eyes followed his handsome figure walking over to the sound system. After a few clicks on the remote, Living for the Love of You softly filled the room. Rachel smiled.
Hold up! What do you know about the Isley brothers?
When you're a grown man like me, you can broil pork chops, have good credit, and you can groove to old school R&B at the same damn time. Bryan said this as he shimmied and spun. When you're a grown man like me, you can broil pork chops, have good credit, and you can groove to old school R&B at the same damn time, he said as he shimmied and spun.
I feel like if that was me, I'd be like, get out of my house immediately.
So, they hang out on their happy couples weekend. He felt like he could spend his whole life locked up in a house with her. Locked up.
Kind of creepy.
A little bit creepy.
Just let's never leave. Like ever.
We'll
like
lock the
ever.
doors. You can't get out. No one can get in. We're stuck together, baby. He could enjoy being curled up in bed together, face to face, legs intertwined, lightly cupping her face in his hands before giving her a soft kiss. This is heaven, baby. I really don't want this weekend to come to an end.
She smiled, nodded in agreement. I know, it's nice to have this time alone, but I also can't wait to let the world know we're engaged. You have no idea how many times I've almost said your name during an interview.
Wow, really? You should come up with an alias for me, so you can say that instead of slipping up. I've almost slipped up a few times myself, Bryan confessed. People keep asking me how things worked out on the show, and I can't even tell them I'm in love. Kissing her twice, he continued, some people are watching like, dude, she seems like she's really into you each week, but people don't seem to like you. I would be really hurt if someone said that to me. People don't really like you. They think you're some player who's trying to get a career. I'm like, what?
They think you're a ladies' man trying to seduce me. And forget about that whole doctor thing. That practice of yours is just a side hustle. To them, you're Jerome. Who's Jerome?
I don't know what that means, but I'm assuming we'll find out. Exactly. They probably do see me as Jerome, the international lover from the Martin show. He shook his head, rolling his eyes. This sent Rachel into hysterical laughter. They'd recently found out another thing they had in common was their love of 90s hit sitcom Martin.
That was oddly specific.
I know. 90s hit sitcom.
I wonder if that's real. Because I
hope it is.
I don't want to make a joke if it is. But is this just a random... Is this Fancy J20's favorite 90s sitcom? Is this Rachel and Bryan and they're just really, really into Martin? I don't know.
I've never heard of it. I hope that's not bad that I've never heard of Martin.
It's pretty popular, but...
Really? Okay. Rachel was gasping for air, trying to sing.
Jerome's in the house, Jerome's in the... Her laughter was contagious and Bryan started too.
Jerome's in the house. Jerome's in the house. So they determined that that's Bryan's alias for interviews, is Jerome. I don't know if that's real or not.
I don't know.
We need to look back on some older interviews, I guess.
We'll find out. So I just got to the point in editing this video that we were talking about Rachel and Bryan having this nickname for Bryan called Jerome in the fan fiction that we're reading. And I thought that I should just look into it and see if there was any truth to that at all. So quick little Google search, and I found articles from ABC News, OK Magazine, TV Guide, and from Rachel's Twitter herself that confirmed that she did indeed call Bryan Jerome before we knew that she chose Bryan. However, I could not find any evidence anywhere that the reason that they chose Jerome was because they were both really into the Martin show. So we'd all have to ask Rachel and Bryan if that was the case, but it was never confirmed publicly. So anyways, just thought I'd throw that little fun fact in there because we didn't realize this at filming, and the more you know. Rachel sighed, finally able to speak again. You'll be referred to as Jerome from now on. Now give me some of that Colombian love. No. I'm done. I gotta go.
I don't know how many more chapters of this I can read. Do you think it's gonna get worse?
I
do you think
fully anticipate it's going to get worse. As they continued to kiss, he slipped his left hand beneath her fitted camisole and started running his fingers up her back. His right hand reached for the lamp switch above the night table. Click. Fancy J keeping it PG. So we've arrived at the televised finale where they invite old contestants, the original top 4 contestants, and then the couple back.
So he's getting glammed up for the finale, and basically he's kind of like watching the finale backstage away from Rachel. She's out on stage with Chris Harrison. So it looks like they're at the part in the finale where she's doing the fantasy suites, and I guess it's the final 3 maybe or something like that. So Bryan watched Rachel dab tears from her eyes as Peter explained that he wasn't sure he was ready to propose. Peter continued to explain that he needed more time to make sure Rachel was the one because he essentially didn't want to waste his one and only wedding proposal on her. Then he saw Rachel reach for an envelope on the coffee table. It was an invitation to the fantasy suite. Smiling, Rachel handed the envelope to Peter.
So basically Bryan starts having a panic attack. Not a panic attack, but and not doubts, but is I guess surprised that she wasn't totally negative towards Peter, and she wasn't busting up in there to say it's always been Bryan, bye, and was giving him the time of day. And then he kind of goes on about that.
He's getting text messages from his family like, what's going on? I thought that you were the winner.
And then it switches to Rachel's perspective. Her heart feels heavy. She hates that she's having to watch this. She hates that Bryan's having to watch this. She wants to run backstage and see him. She feels bad for him. Then we go back to Bryan again, who is watching his connection with Rachel during the fantasy suite, which settled his nerves. And he finally is like,
so what if she had a connection with these other guys?
I'm the winner, clearly, obviously, and I'm just gonna roll with it pretty much. But then
it's just all over the place.
Then Rachel goes to break up with Peter, and he's not too happy with how that looked because it wasn't cut and dry. They were going back and forth figuring out how they could possibly make this relationship work until ultimately Rachel finally leaves, and that's the end.
The iconic tears that we love that scene.
Exactly. Oh, they mention it because then Bryan says she cried her eyelashes off. Bryan had to let that sink in for a moment, as I believe we all did. He sat motionless with his hands limp at his sides. He was beginning to feel strange. Of course, he knew Rachel had feelings for the men in the top 4, but he always believed that what he had with her surpassed anything she experienced with anyone else. Oh, you're joking.
Why does it want me to make a Wattpad account now? We're like halfway through. I don't want to.
No. Why? Fine. They got us in their clutches. We've signed up for Wattpad.
If you want to follow us on Wattpad, we're Sara and Sara.
Send us your fan fiction. Yeah. That's what you should do. Of any genre. But mostly The Bachelor. Everything's
cool. So they go back to their limo after taping. And they're kind of just like talking about how they feel. And like, she's kind of like...
Bryan wants to talk about a lot of feelings, that's for sure. I'm kind of with Rachel on this. Like, why do we have to keep talking about this? How much validation do you need? Fancy J20 portrayal of Bryan Abasolo. Baby, Rachel asked as she got into the back of her limo after taping, how do you feel about that final footage? She searched his face.
We do a lot of searching of the face.
Right? And reading into everything.
What are you talking about? Oh, you mean our beautiful engagement? He said with a hint of sarcasm.
Wait, why was he sarcastic?
Kind of like passive aggressive, honestly.
What are you talking about? Oh, you mean our beautiful engagement?
That was tainted by your love for Peter and you grind your eyelashes off? Oh, it's fine. Do you think this part is sarcastic too? I love the finale. You looked gorgeous. My suit was sharp. And I got down on one knee like I planned the second I told you I was in trouble.
He smiled, grabbing her thigh. Yeah, is that a sarcastic grab? Where does sarcasm begin and end? Either way, it's ill-placed here. Baby, you know what I mean. The other parts of the finale.
I don't even want to read this part.
You can do it. Bryan would do it.
Would he though? I don't even remember those parts. The only parts I care about right now are my fiance's parts. He shouted the last part of his statement, smiling from ear to ear. My fiance's parts! Las partes de mi prometido, he shouted again as the driver glanced curiously in the rearview mirror. Y'all good?
Rachel shook her head and rolled her eyes. She pretended to be annoyed, but they both knew how much she loved when he spoke to her in Spanish. And what exactly does that mean?
It means the parts of my promised, essentially another way of saying my fiance's parts.
That makes it even grosser.
Creepy.
At this point, they were sitting in the back seat, side by side, with her legs across his lap. His hands rested on her legs, and the two lovebirds were slightly turned in towards one another. Bryan got very quiet, his facial expression now serious. They keep having these nice romantic moments, and then he keeps being like, and then Bryan. Uh-oh, here it comes, Rachel thought. His real feelings about the ending, no matter what, be understanding. He has every right to want an explanation. He's confident, and he knows how I feel about him.
Instead, Bryan leaned in closer and tucked her hair behind her ear. He gently took her face into his hands while softly grazing her cheek with his thumb. Closing his eyes, he leaned in and kissed her slowly. Rachel's eyes closed as she leaned into the kiss. All her worries and cares vanished. No one's kiss ever had that effect on her. Bryan was spontaneous and romantic, and it wasn't until he broke their kiss that she realized she forgot to breathe. He literally took her breath away.
Oh my God!
Beautiful. Chef kiss, fancy J20. I love you, Rachel Lynn Lindsay. Is that really her middle name?
Lynn Lindsay? Rachel Lynn Lindsay.
Lynn Lindsay.
It probably is.
I mean, that actually sounds good. It's just kind of funny. Sorry. There's nothing you can do or say that will change that. So stop worrying and just love me back.
Rachel let out a heavy sigh. Okay, Jerome. In that moment, everything was back to normal. They were okay again. They were Rachel and Bryan. R and B are good, she thought, smiling. She leaned in for another kiss. Bryan grabbed the champagne bottle sitting on ice and popped the cork. Rachel asked the driver to roll up the partition. Ooh! Fancy J must love Beyonce because we had a Halo reference and now we have a partition reference. So then they do a press tour. Their press tour schedule was so tight that there were periodical 10-minute breaks penciled in just so they would have time to use the restroom. Weird flex, but okay.
Wild. So he's getting stressed out. He's kind of just like sitting there letting Rachel do the talking. And then it says, the only question anyone ever wanted to ask him was how he felt watching footage of Rachel and the runner-up. Social media was calling Bryan a rebound pick and loser.
Oh man. That's kind of sad.
Way. His family was so sad about the negative reports and what Rachel and Bryan referred to as shade.
What the kids these days call shade. Rachel's mad at his negative portrayal, and Bryan is sad at his negative portrayal. That's basically this whole chapter. Oh, this is so corny. This is like in any like trope of a rise to fame. They're at a hotel and during their press conference or press tour, and somebody rings the doorbell, and so Bryan stopped her. Let me get it, babe, just in case. How chivalrous. He got up and walked to the door. Who is it? Erica with ABC? That's a weird way to spell Erica. Erica with ABC, a woman's voice responded. We have something you two have to see. Bryan opened the door as Rachel hopped up and down behind him, trying to see what was in the hallway. It was a luggage cart, fully loaded from top to bottom with plastic bins. What is all of this? Bryan asked. It's mail, Erica said in a matter-of-fact tone. Erica said in a matter-of-fact tone. Fan mail, to be exact. Thousands of letters and cards have flooded our offices since your finale. I don't think we've ever had a response like this in the show's entire history. And Bryan and Rachel stood there stunned. They love us. They really love us.
I wouldn't even know where to send fan mail.
Right? To a hotel room, apparently. On their press tour.
Thank you so much, Bryan said. We could really use some love right now. He smiled.
See, baby, it's not all hate. There's love and light for you, for us, she said as he placed her on the bed. I can just feel the positive energy building back up. After this whole chapter was anger and sadness. You know, I really didn't appreciate this relationship until an outsider told me I should. Well, that's it for today's installment of Bachelor Fanfiction Reading. If you'd like to hear the rest of it, you'll have to come back next time
For part 2. Mis reinas. How will this story end? Will there ever be plot points? Who really knows? So go ahead and subscribe so that you can be notified when we drop part 2. Like it.
As much as Bryan likes cooking pork chops.